What matters most? The late afternoon sun filtered through the old oak trees lining the quiet street, casting dancing shadows across the pavement. Emma Rodriguez sat on the curb beside her luxury sedan, her silk blouse wrinkled and her usually perfect blonde hair falling in loose strands around her face. Steam rose from under the hood of her car, matching the frustration that had been building inside her for weeks. As CEO of Rodriguez Industries, Emma was used to solving problems with quick phone calls and decisive action. But today, her phone had been buzzing with nothing but bad news. The company's stock had plummeted. 3 major clients had cancelled their contracts. The board of directors was calling for an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Her 3-year-old daughter, Sophie, sat quietly on the grass nearby, picking dandelions and humming a soft tune. The little girl wore a pink dress dotted with tiny flowers, and her blonde curls caught the sunlight like spun gold. She seemed completely unbothered by their current situation, lost in the simple joy of her flower collection. Emma pulled her phone from her purse and stared at the screen. 17 missed calls from her assistant, 12 urgent emails from department heads, 1 text message from her ex-husband's lawyer about custody arrangements. She felt the weight of it all pressing down on her shoulders like a heavy blanket. The sound of footsteps on gravel made her look up. A man in work clothes was walking toward them from the small auto repair shop across the street. He had kind eyes and grease-stained hands, and he moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who knew how to fix things. "Car trouble?" he asked, nodding toward the smoking hood. Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. She recognized him as Alexander Hayes, the owner of Hayes Auto Repair. She had driven past his shop countless times on her way to the office, never imagining she would need his services. Her usual mechanic worked on the expensive cars of wealthy clients, but today her sedan had broken down in this quiet neighborhood, far from her usual world of boardrooms and business lunches. Alexander knelt down and lifted the hood, studying the engine with practiced eyes. "Looks like your radiator gave out," he said simply. "It happens sometimes when cars work too hard for too long." Something in his words hit Emma harder than expected. She felt tears welling up in her eyes, and before she could stop herself, she was speaking. "I lost everything," she whispered, her voice cracking. "My company is failing. My competitors are celebrating. Years of work, gone. Everything I built, everything I worked for, ... It's all disappearing." Alexander looked at her with quiet understanding, then glanced over at Sophie, who had moved closer and was now offering him a dandelion with a shy smile. "Thank you, sweetheart," he said gently, accepting the flower. Sophie giggled and ran back to her patch of grass, already searching for more treasures. Alexander stood up, wiping his hands on a shop rag. He looked at Emma, who was staring at the ground with tears streaming down her cheeks. "You still have her," he said simply. Emma looked up, confused. "What?" "Your daughter," Alexander said, nodding toward Sophie. "You still have her. That little girl who thinks you're the most important person in the world, who doesn't care about stock prices or board meetings. She only cares that you're her mum." Emma followed his gaze to where Sophie was now making a crown of dandelions, her tongue poking out in concentration. The sight of her daughter's complete absorption in such a simple task made Emma's chest tighten with a different kind of emotion. "But how will I provide for her?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How will I give her the life she deserves if I lose everything?" Alexander was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "My wife died when my son was 8, he said eventually. "I thought I had to be everything for him, work harder, make more money, give him every advantage. But you know what he needed most?" Emma shook her head. "He needed me to be present, to really see him, to remember that love isn't something you buy or achieve, it's something you give." Sophie had finished her dandelion crown and was now walking toward them with serious determination. She climbed into Emma's lap without hesitation, placing the flower crown gently on her mother's head. "You're a princess, Mummy," Sophie announced, with the certainty that only a 3-year-old could possess. Emma felt something shift inside her chest. Looking down at her daughter's bright eyes and trusting smile, she realized that Alexander was right. Her company might fail. Her bank account might empty. Her competitors might celebrate. But this little girl would still call her mummy tomorrow morning, would still reach for her hand when crossing the street, would still believe that she could fix anything. "Can you repair the car?" Emma asked Alexander, her voice steadier now. "I can try," he replied, "but it might take a few days to get the parts." Emma nodded, pulling out her phone. Instead of checking her messages, she turned it off completely and slipped it back into her purse. "That's okay," she said, adjusting Sophie's weight in her arms. "We're not in a hurry." For the first time in months, that was actually true. Emma had spent so many years racing toward the next deadline, the next meeting, the next milestone, that she had forgotten how to simply be still. But sitting here on the curb with Sophie in her lap and a dandelion crown on her head, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time. "Peace," Alexander smiled. "There's a park just down the street," he said. "Has a good playground. I could call you when I know more about the car." Emma looked at Sophie, who had perked up at the word playground. "Swings, Mommy?" Sophie asked hopefully. "Yes, baby. Emma said, standing up and taking her daughter's small hand. Let's go find the swings. As they walked toward the park, Emma realized that Alexander had given her something more valuable than a car repair. He had reminded her of what truly mattered. Her company might recover or it might not. Her stock might rise again or it might continue to fall. But Sophie would only be 3 once, would only believe in dandelion crowns and playground magic. For a few more precious years, the evening sun was setting as they reached the playground, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sophie ran toward the swings with pure joy, her laughter echoing across the empty park. Emma followed more slowly, her heels clicking on the pavement until she kicked them off and walked barefoot through the grass, pushing Sophie on the swing, listening to her daughter's delighted squeals. Emma felt the first genuine smile she'd had in weeks spread across her face. Tomorrow she would deal with the board meeting, and the failing stock prices and all the complicated realities of her business world. But tonight, she was exactly where she needed to be. "Hiya, Mommy," Sophie called out, her hair flying in the breeze. "Hold on tight," Princess Emma replied, giving the swing another gentle push. And for the first time in months, Emma Hayes knew with absolute certainty that she was rich beyond measure.